God rest the soul of Representative Elijah Cummings from Maryland, but his congressional seat's now open, and there's going to be a fight to win it. The establishment power brokers have nominated his widow to pass it down as an inheritance, but we've got a candidate that's going to challenge that and has a great opportunity to win. And we'll talk to her about that and much more. So strap in. It's the Rob Maness Show. It's been a busy week, and the political pundits are working overtime to push their fake news narratives. We'll dive into what's really going on in one 2020 congressional race this week and what it means for the presidential contests. We're seeing a host of candidates rising to challenge the status quo and the race to replace the late Representative Elijah Cummings, God rest his soul. It will be interesting because the controlling establishment power brokers have convinced Cummings' widow, Dr. Maya Rockeymoore Cummings, who said this week that she is still grieving the loss of her husband, but is determined to press forward by running for Congress. Well, here in America, political seats aren't supposed to be passed by family inheritance, so I'm very happy to see some solid challengers, and one that we have as our guest on the show today, Miss Liz Matory, the first black woman nominated to Congress by the Republican Party in Maryland, the first American of Asian descent nominated to Congress in the state of Maryland, and get this, the only outspoken pro-life conservative Christian running for the Congressional District 7 in Maryland. Liz, welcome to the Rob Maness Show.
Thank you for having me.
Oh, we're glad to have you on, and we're excited about what you're up to. You are a candidate for the Maryland Congressional District 7 seat coming up here, and that was Mr. Elijah Cummings' seat, God rest his soul, who passed away not too long ago. And we really want to hear your story, but the big question up front is, what the heck are you thinking? Why do you think you can win, and why are you doing this?
Yeah, well, a lot of people told me not to waste my time. It's a done deal. And, when you hear answers like that in a constitutional republic, it sort of should jar your system because we're not supposed to have, coronations here. So as a former Democrat, I actually was a field organizer for the 2014 campaign here in Maryland. So I actually know the region a lot. So having had that experience and seeing how, for better or worse, how the Democratic Party has become so socialist, radical leftist, that the only options that someone like me had would be to leave the party and try to find better solutions. And to my surprise, having been a DC native and a youngish black woman, I never thought about the Republican Party or conservative principles, but to my surprise, that was where I found my home. So with that conversation built out throughout the last few years, I do believe that my campaign and my candidacy would be a breath of fresh air for our region. That's what people have always said to me. Oh, you're a breath of fresh air. And I'm like, oh, that's nice. And so why not offer that opportunity for voters in Congressional 7th? Why should we not?
I think it's critically important that folks outside of the Democrat Party, I just have to be transparent. I left the Republican Party not too long ago after a lifetime in it since my first vote for President Reagan.
Right.
But your story and your issues campaign, which I know you'll run on the issues, I can tell that by what I've seen in the historical record, is how will you address especially that district from a civil rights perspective?
Right. Well, just to be clear, Maryland is one of the most gerrymandered states in the country. So our district not only includes West Baltimore, but most of Howard County and Baltimore County. So it's a great opportunity for someone like me, but it was a challenge for other people because it has rural, suburban, and urban votes, if you will. So just to be able to have that opportunity to represent the entire district is a wonderful experience for me. But when it comes to sort of the forgotten man, which quite frankly, all of us have been forgotten with that gerrymandering, but specifically with West Baltimore, it's a totalitarian government. Let's be honest. When you have one party rule, every single person from congressman on down to let's school board are Democrats. People get away with a lot of pay to play, a lot of, keep these people under your heel so that they will vote for you all the time. When you promise them things every 2 to 4 years and nothing changes, it gets just worse. Coming from a civil rights background, coming from Howard University School of Law, when you see that third generation of poverty, you have to find better solutions because what we've had for so long obviously has not helped anyone. If anything, they only help the people who have been in power for this long.
Yeah, I think I agree. So, what are some of your non-government solutions to that issue? Because I'm a big believer that
Right.
the more government that's involved, the worse the policies are to continue these generations of poverty in a lot of these communities like West Baltimore. So, what
Right.
will you focus on in Congress as a non-government policy approach?
Well, number one, we've got to be honest with the government system. 60 years ago, the Democrats under the Johnson administration actually created a very successful program. They actually wanted our society and our communities, particularly Black communities, to be degraded. So they actually created policies, whether it's the education system, whether it's the welfare state, to make sure that by this time in the future, which we are in now, that people cannot function on their own. So being honest with what the system actually is and then telling people that, we are the most powerful citizens ever created on the face of the planet. We have to be able to tap into our God-given potential and make sure that it's our individual liberty that is supposed to be honored. The fact that we still believe in God, most of us Black Americans still believe in Jesus specifically, and government should not be our God. So again, having those honest conversations, reminding people of their own power will be very impactful. And quite frankly, I'm angry that more people don't take on that responsibility for themselves.
Yeah, one of the things I've noticed in my own political campaigns and others, we just had a Democrat governor who is a very faithful Christian man and family, West Point graduate, win the governor's race down here in Louisiana over a very well-funded Republican, backed by every Republican, including the president.
Yeah.
But he did it because he addressed at-risk communities, and he didn't shy away from that.
Right.
So I'm glad you're diving into it. What will you offer them as solutions from getting out of this perpetual poverty policy loop that past policies, as you mentioned, the Johnson administration and other Democrat policies have gotten us into? I mean, that's the real struggle, right? The people tend to want to vote for their own interests. How do we tell them that it's in your interest to do this if we, don't have a policy that they can understand?
Right. Well, it's a cultural shift, if you will. Three
Mhm.
generations ago, we used to be Republicans. Our families didn't want welfare because they knew that down the road we'd be dependent on the government. So again, reminding people that government support should be your last resort. It should be temporary. We should bolster the economy and make sure that people actually have, incentives to work. Because now what happens is that, you have to work three jobs, three low-paying jobs, in order to amass the wealth that you would have had or the funding that you would have from government welfare, whether it's subsidies, whether it's food stamps, whether it's, housing. So what's the incentive for someone to have that as their legacy? So again, like being more honest with that responsibility within oneself, and empower one another to say that, this is not right. We want better. We want to make sure that we can stand on our own 2 feet, provide for our families, reunite our families, and make sure that we again can stand on our own.
Yeah, I think we've got to, and you have a great opportunity to do so, to turn the talking point. We want to hand out, not, or a hand up, not a handout,
Right.
into reality. And I think over the years, there's been several folks that have tried to do that. Robert Kennedy, before he was passed away, was trying to implement that type of policy from the U.S. Senate in the New York City area. We have
Mhm.
economic empowerment zones that the Trump
Right.
administration is implementing today, that are
Mhm.
very close to the Robert Kennedy model. And I look forward to you fighting to get those types of policies in place to really break the cycle,
Mhm.
and help folks. And you know what? It's not just people of color,
Mhm.
or other nationality like Asians or Black Americans, African Americans. It's We have a lot of poor white folks in this country too. Poverty knows no race,
Right.
and I am so blessed to hear you talk about it. H-
Yeah.
How will you address the issue of, and we have to ask this question, Liz,
Mm.
of the impeachment effort that the Democrat Party has going on with the President of the United States right now? How will you
Well,
address that in your campaign?
right. So, as you know, Congressman Cummings was one of the sort of four, one in the front lines to impeach our president. People have said that he was signing documents on his deathbed to push forward on the fight. And quite frankly, when you talk to citizens, especially in our region, we're really skeptical. Like as Americans, we have this healthy skepticism for any abuse of power. Let's talk about it. Like if here we are in Baltimore, if you were ever to, you know, um, charge someone for a crime that they possibly could have committed or not committed, and throw the book at them, I mean, let's be honest. I mean, that's one area that we in Baltimore can kind of relate to our president, and actually have sympathy. So, the more that the Democrats are sort of like showing their cards, and that they're picking, this doesn't stick, so let's try this and let's try this. They're really playing with fire here. And so, the more that the media is showing this, now it's turning into a circus. The average citizen's waking up to say, there's something wrong there. Our government should not be able to, like our Congress should not be able to attack our president, who we duly elected, even though you don't like the results. And to be honest, like it, in order for President Trump to have won, he would have already had some of the black vote or some of the women vote. So what you see, again, having been a former Democrat operative, they're freaking out because it's only gotten better. Our president only has gotten more successful. The economy, low unemployment, people having jobs and feeling this sustainable, growth, is their worst nightmare because more people are going to vote for him next time.
Well, I support his policies because they are working for America for the most part. I mean, nobody's perfect, no policy is perfect,
Right.
but he's doing what the Beltway crowd, what some people call the Beltway bandits, the fourth branch of government, the bureaucracy, the establishment, whatever, deep state, whatever name you want to give it. He's doing what the candidates from those areas, from the both parties, would not do. And that's why
Right.
we hired him as the American people. And that's why I'm sticking with him, because of his policies. And
Right.
speaking of his policies, one of my biggest concerns as a retired military officer and former commander, someone who's held court martial convening authority in the
Mm-hmm.
U.S. military, is the foreign policy area and what this impeachment effort implies or sets precedent involved in. The Constitution of the United States vests only one individual,
Mm-hmm.
not I mean, it's an office, but not a group of people, not a bureaucracy, not the government of the United States led by the president, but the
Hmm.
president of the United States is invested with the power to make foreign policy in the U.S. Constitution.
Right.
And we are on dangerous territory in that regard,
Hmm.
and the president as the commander in chief of the United States Armed Forces. If you've watched any of the testimony from the Army Lieutenant Colonel that serves on the National Security Council recently, you will see that his view is that the president doesn't have the power to do it. It's the interagency consensus
Yeah.
that should
Wow.
rule over the president. And they're actually trying to use that to impeach this president of the United States. So there's two big issues there, the foreign policy issue and who does it. And then civilian control of the military is a huge issue. And that's what's made the United States able to be great for all these hundreds of years, is because of that unique concept of civilian control of the military. How do you plan on addressing those issues if you can get elected to the U.S. Congress?
Right. So I actually come from a military family. My brother is still active. My uncles, my father, my aunt, my grandfather served in the Bataan Death March in the Philippines. So I have a great deference to not only military, but also their families. They serve with them. So God bless them for their service. So all the more reason, going back to, for my understanding, September 11th, when as a civilian you're witnessing what Congress was or was not able to do this whole time, unfortunately we have stepped out of our boundaries, and there is an opportunity for us to sort of recalibrate and make sure that we aren't going into these endless wars. I mean, unfortunately that's where we're at. So when we have a president, a very strong president like our President Trump, we're actually getting to be more in a place of power in the international community. Over the prior administration, there was a lot of ambiguity, and the world needs us to be firm and stand strong. So when we go in, there shouldn't be any questions asked. So, for me to watch the hearings today, for example, it really it should be a concern for all citizens, for people who are in the service of our country, to undermine the president so publicly, because, they're doing actually more harm to our prowess than any foreign agent. That's the truth.
Well, thank you. That is precisely, especially the part about ending the endless wars, why I support the president's foreign policy and national security policy. As you just indicated, it's warriors and warriors' families that are most opposed to war. And we need more folks like you and like me in the United States Congress to tamp down this desire on the non-military folks' part. It seems, I'm not saying all, but it seems that folks that haven't served or have children serving tend to make it a much easier decision to send our young men and women into harm's way and risk their lives. So I appreciate your approach on that and your position on that, and I wish you the best, Liz. How do folks find you and do things like make donations, sign up to get your information, those kind of things? Give us your contact info.
Yes, definitely. As we said before, I'm running for a federal position. So even if you don't live in the state of Maryland, even if you don't live in the 7th Congressional, you can support, because everything we're voting on will affect you personally. So our website is voteforlizmatory.com. Vote for Liz Matory is MATORY.com. And on social media, it's at Liz for Congress. So thank you so much for your support. And again, we can actually flip this district with the right candidate.
Thank you very much. Well, there you have it, folks. Liz Matory running for Congress in the 7th Congressional District of Maryland. Liz, thanks for coming on the Rob Maness Show.
Thanks for having me.
Well, folks, we appreciate Liz Matory coming on and wish her the best in capturing that seat in Maryland so that we can continue to put America first in the U.S. Congress and help the President of the United States get his policies enacted. Until next week on the Rob Maness Show.